Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Mob Stories with James Proctor. Hope everyone's doing well today. I'm here today with my friend and former partner, Lee Cole. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and I wasn't planning on being there, but after I heard all the details with Cicale on this Yvonne thing, a woman, and then you, and then Nadu, I thought that we do some research on it, and I was glad that you invited me on to ask you some questions because I know you did a lot of deep research in this, haven't you?
Yeah, it definitely is. And this is really a fascinating story. And as I've dug deeper and deeper, it just seems to get more and more golden nuggets out of there of what's going on. I mean, this is one of the most interesting stories that I've been involved with in a while.
Okay, so James, so this woman was involved with a couple scams. We're not going to talk about the mob stuff. Now, wasn't she involved with scamming, and a guy lost his house because of a drugstore? Want to get into the
details? Yeah. So there's quite a few scams that she was involved with, but one person in particular that she was involved with was her mother-in-law Her mother-in-law Tina worked for a pharmacist named Joe on Jamaica and Queens, and it ended up he had bought a house, and due to a scam, the pharmacist ended up losing that home. And like I said, the mother-in-law had worked for this pharmacist for several years, and the pharmacist trusted the mother-in-law and trusted Yvonne, but then ended up losing his home. And that happened around 2010 or so.
So this is Yvonne right here, and that's back then. And this happened with the pharmacist, and then explained about her. They had a child. Her and her husband had a child, and she also got caught up in a scam, getting money for her crippled daughter. What's the story?
Yeah, I mean that's what she was using that as her rationalization or excuse for why she committed these scams. But her in particular, she got in trouble in 2006 for a scam, and she did not go to jail on that one because her and her husband Vincent, who is a Bonanno Associate at the time, decided to cooperate, and her husband wore a wire. And then she continued to commit fraud and got caught again in 2011 and went to prison for 2 years on that case.
Okay,
and
James,
she wrote letters to the judge saying that.
So, James, I just want to show. I'm not going to read these off, people, but this is her criminal record right here. Okay, here we go.
There's like 26 different cases, and that's not everything because I don't think it has the federal cases, but that's mostly Florida.
And I'm just rolling through this now. Look, and you'll see felony after felony on here. Okay, and so she used her sick daughter as an excuse for robbing people.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that was her justification for it. But the thing is that both her and her husband was involved in these scams. And if you go back and look at the cases, she was actually scamming the mob.
Yeah. And so 23, 24, 26, I feel like a saint compared to this woman. I just want people to see that real quick. We can't read these things. There's just so many on it. But I wanted you guys to see that because we started with the pharmacist, then she's using the daughter. And you talked to Yvonne on the phone, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. In all of this, just to let you know, I talked to her on the phone. I've talked to Dominick Cicale on the phone. I talked to the realtor on the phone, Kim Hawk. I've also spoke with Judge Garufalis' office and talked to the clerk on Friday. And so I have, spoken with a couple other people that know Yvonne from the neighborhood that wanted to remain anonymous. And so, I've talked to at least half a dozen people.
And how many people said that she was robbing? She was just robbing everything moving, and basically she had a ton of scams going on in Howard Beach, robbing people of a lot of money, including the pharmacist that lost his house. And using his daughter, and she was making people feel sorry for the daughter and getting money from people for the daughter.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it goes all the way back, like I said, Howard Beach. She grew up there. She was, she knew a lot of those people that ended up becoming mobsters or affiliated with that lifestyle, through the years. So, especially she grew up like in the it'd be the 70s and the 80s when she was growing up, and she knew all of the mobsters, and most of the mob guys know who Yvonne is.
So we're going to build this up, and we're going to build it up to what actually happened to Dominick Cicale, because you got some documents that nobody else has. Dominic gave you permission to put them up.
Yeah.
Let's. Okay, so this is an article from Lady Khan's Mafia stole 500G from goons. Okay.
Yeah.
A desperate housewife pulled a fast one on mob and real-life Sopranos. The wise guy lawyers are whining in court papers. The Queen's homemaker, Yvonne Rossetti, conned 3 Bonanno gangsters out of $500,000. Okay. After convincing them to invest in phony real estate deal, court papers say. When the thugs got wise of the Howard Beach woman and threatened to put her in the trunk of a car, mob speak for murder, her husband wore a wire and turned them into the feds, the mobsters' mouthpieces claim. She's a con artist, said Joseph Benfanti, who represents Michael the Butcher Virtuoso. The real danger to the community is Yvonne Rossetti. Virtuoso and Michael Cassis. I apologize if these names are just hitting me. Reputed members of the Bonannos and alleged family associates of Agostino Accardo were indicted last month for loan sharking charges in Brooklyn federal court after Rossetti's husband, Vincent, ratted them out. The video player is currently playing. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay,
that's Vincent, pretty funny.
Yeah. Vincent faces federal extortion charges as unrelated cases. Cassis's lawyer, Steve Zazoy, questioned Vincent's sudden decision to go to the feds. The feds got it wrong. They got a bill of goods by the Rossetti characters. Lawyers from all 3 Bonannos say Yvonne is a con artist who bilked her neighbors, the wise guy said, and their family members out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. For $100,000, she's promised an extraordinary rate of return from selling shares in a real estate venture in California as a pyramid scheme, basically.
Yeah, right. That's what it was.
In 2005, Yvonne convinced Accardo and his family to invest $500,000 in a land deal. Accardo coughed up what he could, then turned to his friend Virtuoso and his family for the rest. When the profits failed to appear, Accardo asked Cassis to put the screws to the wayward businesswoman. Vincent taped Cassis and Virtuoso threatening his wife and gave the recordings to the feds. Assistant U.S. Attorney Chan insists that the 3 indicted mobsters are loan shark in business. Virtuoso Chan were arrested on ledger debts owed to the family on him and scraped the paper with Yvonne and Vincent Rossetti's name in his pocket. Accardo is free on $1 million bail, and the other men are being held without bail. So, and we know that they went to prison. Okay.
Yeah.
So, no. Okay. So basically right there, so it's her and her husband. It's her husband, Vincent. So give us the details on her husband, Vincent, how long he's been running around scamming people.
Yeah. And so, as I said, he's a Bonanno associate. He starts back in 1993, getting in trouble for stock scams, stock fraud, mortgage fraud through the years. And now we jump forward to 2006, which is 13 years later. And because of this scam that his wife's doing that he's involved in as well, they're threatening his wife. So there's an unrelated fraud case that he is being charged with. So he sees that as an opportunity to rat and be able to get an out of jail free card.
And he ratted on Charles Carneglia also, didn't he?
Charles Carneglia, he did there on the left. Yeah, Charles Carneglia, he ratted on him and was one of the primary witnesses in that trial, which took place in 2007. And Charles Carneglia got convicted and life in prison.
Okay, so let me get this. So we got this woman not caring about her mother-in-law, basically, even though she has a job, and scamming the daylights out of this this poor owner that owns a pharmacy. Good man. It was on Jamaica Avenue, I believe.
Yeah. Yes.
And so he winds up as part of the scam hawking his house.
Yeah.
To come up with some money. You know what gets me is that now this is all a lot of stuff here. I mean, it's unbelievable when you think about it. And we're not even scraping all the things they did, James. Is that correct?
Right. There was because she continues to do this. And then in 2011, she gets caught again, with scams, this time like $800,000. And at this point, she gets convicted, put in prison for 2 years. And the judge had leniency with her because she wrote letters to 2 judges stating the reason she did that was to take care of her sick daughter. She had a daughter that had a bad, physical disability, and unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But she said she was doing that for her daughter.
Okay, so that's why she went and they got $500,000 from the mob because for the daughter.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Okay, so she did that, and so Carneglia, she was part of her and her husband were part when the Bonannos all came crumbling down in 2007, and Messino and all that. She was part of that. I mean,
no, this was a little bit later. The Messino thing was before this, but she was part of another wave of Bonannos. Yeah,
right. Messino already came down.
Yeah,
and then what happened is her and her husband put the final nail in the coffin.
Exactly. Yeah, that family was decimated, and and still hasn't recovered to this day, in my opinion.
Right. Oh, yeah. None of these guys are going to recover, unfortunately. So this woman, it reminds me of the movie Rob the Mob, but this woman and her husband did so much more than these people in Rob the Mob, and no one's in the mob. How do they end up? The mob killed them.
Yeah, exactly. In that movie, yeah.
So right after they make all these deals with the feds, this is your typical case of the feds letting somebody out, her and her husband, and they continue their wayward ways of robbing people. They're and at that time they're part of the federal program. Is that correct?
Witness. Yeah, they're part of Witness Protect WITSEC. They end up being relocated down to Central Florida. I don't think they're in the program anymore, but they're considered confidential informants.
So they went down to Florida and started their scamming down there.
Yeah, exactly. So actually back in because you remember 2006 when they went into the program, that's when they cooperated. 2011 was all of those charges that took place from fraud in Florida. And so, they've been down in Florida nearly 20 years.
Well, okay, so let's explain how this whole thing with Dominick Cicale started. Okay, so you got the story from Dominic, and you spoke to Yvonne on the phone. Did she give you her side of the story?
She gave me her side of the story. I have his side of the story.
Why don't you just throw it together for people then, James?
Yeah, so what happened was, because I had a lot of questions myself, why Dominic even got involved with her, how they met, all that stuff. And so what ended up happening is that back in 2020, during the pandemic, Dominic had a business dealing with these PPE masks, and he was looking for a partner, and he talked to Frank Fapiano, and Frank Fapiano, which is Mikey Scar's brother-in-law, ended up connecting this woman, Yvonne, with Dominick Cicale. And so that's how they actually met for the first time. They didn't do any business together until this year, when Dominick Cicale was looking to sell 2 parcels of land that was worth several $1 million.
Can I ask you a question? This woman, do you think that she preyed off of greed of others to make money, kind of used that against them and made them a bunch of, she did that with her husband with the Bonannos, with all that money being like $500,000. So do you think that that's part of what happened here? That people wanted to make money the quick, easy way. And sometimes we get blinded by that.
Yeah. I mean, I think so, because, this case is a little bit unusual. Right now, there's no criminal case involved yet. Everything is a civil case. Right now, it's a business deal or a transaction that did not go through. But basically what happened is that Dominick Cicale had these 2 parcels of land he was wanting to sell, was worth several $1 million. He found out that Yvonne Marquez, which that's the name she was using. Her, Rossetti's her real last name, but she's going by Marquez. Anyway, she said that she could help Dominic in 2 ways. One was to find the buyer. So she found a lady that was willing to do a lease to own option on the land. And then she had a realtor that she knew, Kim Hawk, who I talked to, and she's one of the premier Central Florida realtors.
So how did they check to see whether Yvonne had money or whether the person working with Yvonne, did they give her, like usually you would get some proof from the bank that these people have money? I mean,
yeah. So the confusing thing is that there's 2 different transactions that we're talking about that failed. The first transaction was the lease to own on the property, and that was Yvonne finding a woman to purchase the property. However, she agreed to this, and she didn't even make the first payment. And so this is where there was $100,000 given, and there was $100,000 given on that.
But that was Dominick Cicale gave them $100,000.
Yeah, $100,000. And
what is this letter of intent right here? This contract.
So what ended up happening later was that because the woman fell through, Yvonne said, well, my aunt would be interested in purchasing the land, but she's waiting on a trust fund. She's got a trust fund of $5.4 million or whatever.
And this is all part of a scam still. She's still scamming Dominic.
Yeah, this is what was being told to Dominic. Yep. And so in that paperwork, with the attorney, so Dominic has an attorney involved in this, a real estate attorney. And so there's evidence of the funds, but apparently the bank statements and all of that just doesn't, it was found to be fraudulent according to Dominic.
Okay, so the letter of intent was basically fraudulent. She made an agreement on it. As you can see, Dominic's there and Yvonne, their signatures are there. And Dominic gave you permission to put this up and show. Right?
Yeah, this document. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so you see that document right there. Okay, and so what happened after that, James? Okay, so all of a sudden, Dominic's got to start getting his bad feeling in his stomach. And then when he checks out who she is, that had to be like a punch in the face.
Yeah, exactly. So he had this transaction that was in April. And when things did not happen by June, 60 days later, then he realized that something was not right. And then that's when he started to check out who Yvonne was. And then he finds out all of the, criminal past she had. I think he knew that she had a criminal past, but based on talking to Frank Fapiano, but it didn't know to that extent. Said that she got in some trouble a few years ago, and she even admitted to Dominic later on that
some trouble.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone knew the extent of it until Dominic had went through her record and all of that.
So basically, Dominic didn't realize that her husband had something to do with Carneglia being brought down, had something to do with the Bonannos being brought down. I mean, this is not like this ain't like they robbed the bank and they got busted and went to jail. This is like these people are robbing the mob.
Right.
And so here they are years later. And she decided that, okay, I'm going to rip off a former capo of a mob that has 2 bodies.
Yeah. And she's she's saying that she didn't rip him off. She just said that her role was to be she'd get a finder's fee for introducing a buyer to Dominic, and that fell through. And then you had but then what ended up happening was when she was going to get her aunt or whatever for the property with the trust fund, then that's when you went to another level of things that weren't true. And so, it's just dug deeper is what I'm trying to say. So at this point, Dominic is just frustrated. I asked him, if he went to, did he go to the authorities on this? And so he didn't go to local authorities. He ended up sending information to the FBI first, and the FBI said they would respond, look into it. And so this was back in June, and he never heard back from the FBI. So he writes a letter in July to Judge Garufalis, hoping the
FBI's got to be laughing. They got to be laughing that one of their informants ripped off another informant. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
They're not gonna go after her to do anything because she's an informant. She did a lot. She put away a lot of big people.
Right.
And so did he. They put away big people. They were part of putting away big people. So I don't see where they're going to go after her. Maybe the police would have, but I don't. The feds aren't gonna. The feds have let her walk around all these years doing everything she's doing, James.
Yeah, and the thing is with this case now, most likely what the police would say is that right now it'd be it's a civil case, so they're going to pursue civil remedies on that. What they have to do is show that there's fraud. So I know that Dominic is suing her for, like $230,000. And
isn't this the letter? Right? Isn't it this part of one of the letters that he sent out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll read this as quick as I can. As you know, Warman Damon has the privilege, but basically they're going after the money. $300,000 altogether. So you're talking a lot of money here. I mean, so explain to me how much.
And she has paid back a lot of it. She has paid back like 60-something thousand.
60,000 of what?
Of the original 102,000.
Okay. But she probably paid it back because she got caught.
Yeah, and she plans on, and what she told me is she plans on paying, the other 200,000 or whatever. That's her plan.
Okay,
but she'd have to do it through installments or whatever.
Yeah, once again, she's getting away with running over somebody like this. I mean, that's what it sounds like.
He's seeking triple damages, but the thing is that that's 300,000's not. That's with triple damages. It's really 100,000, and so if there's fraud, the thing is the judge would have to say that there is fraud, and then there could be triple damages at that point. But if the judge says that, well, yeah, you're liable for the 100,000, but it wasn't fraud, then she would just have to pay the 100,000 back.
Have you ever come across any? I mean, James, you do all these stories and stuff. This is a pretty incredible story that this woman and her husband, and the husband, he's a creep, and also I hear that they play good cop, bad cop with each other. They blame each other. They've been doing this for years.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's happened. Yeah. And so some of the same excuses like what Vincent has said, to like Dominick Cicale, those are the same things that he said to other mobsters. Basically what it is, he's saying, I can't control my wife. I dread coming home at night. I don't know what she's going to get into and that type of stuff. But they've been married 35 years. So they've been married since 1990. And I know that at least pretty much their whole marriage, he had been involved in scams, at least back in 1993.
He testified against Charles Carneglia. I mean, is that the wife's fault too? It's obvious what's going on here. They're both hustlers and scammers, and they're bad. And not, you can't even call them. They go for such large amount of monies, and some part of them don't realize it, who they do it to.
Right.
See, they got lucky because they just did this hustling of the mob and stuff when the mob started dying. Can you imagine if this was the 90s or the 80s and they did this?
Yeah, that's what it was. That's the thing is, if you look back in the 80s or 90s, then look at what would happen. Look at what happened. Do you remember the couple, the Uvas?
Yeah,
what they did, robbing social clubs.
Yep, and that's what happened. Or look at the guy that with the club that was trying to rob Sammy and his crew there, and they put 2 bullets in his eyes. Remember?
Yep, exactly.
You can hear about people doing stuff like this, but through the 80s and 90s, they paid the price. These guys never paid no price. They did very little jail time. And the husband who comes off as being a coward, and people might say, well, yeah, he's a coward. I mean, if you are gonna testify against Charles Carneglia and put him away and stuff, you're lucky, dude. You are real lucky that the mob was done at that time.
Yeah, he wasn't ever looked at as a tough guy person. He was more of a hustler, street hustler, and was successful at it, obviously, and was on record with Ronnie G. Ronnie G. Alonzo with the Bonanno family as associate. So, yeah, I mean, he was involved, but once in 2007, once he cooperated and his wife did, they don't. The only people now they can scam would be the basically the informants, and you have a lot of them down in Florida for whatever
they're all looking
reason.
to make a buck.
Yeah,
they're all down there in my blue heaven, and I'm going to tell you what. I mean, I've heard about a lot of things, but Yvonne's got them beat. I mean, her hustle is top of the line, and to rob the mob. To literally rob the mob, killers. She robbed killers.
Yeah. I mean, they are. Dominic has 2 bodies. Carneglia has a dozen. A dozen that we know of. A dozen that we know of. And Florida is the top spot for white collar scams in the United States. And you've got 2 types of people there. You've got people that have money. And then you've got the people that want to take from the people that have money, is what it is.
It's kind of funny. It's like when the feds threw her down there, they said, let's send this one down there and she'll hustle them all. Because her game seems to be a lot better than their games.
I mean, I have to give her that. I mean, I'll tell you this, that the word is that she has more talking about how at least appealed down in Howard Beach, what they said that she's the best scam artist that they've ever ran across. And even Dominic said that.
You see these guys like Gene Borrello and John Alay running. They did nothing like this woman did.
Yeah. And Gene Borrello actually told Dominic that the trust fund was a fraud, that, they didn't have the money. So Gene Borrello actually told Dominic that.
Because, so he must have known her from Howard Beach.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Howard Beach, great, beautiful, nice place to live, but you got some bad people coming out of Howard Beach.
Yeah.
You got some really good people there, but you got some bad people in Howard Beach.
Yeah, exactly.
And this woman proves it right here, James. It's an incredible story. So do you Dominic, we know he came out with that video the other day, which I watched that video. It was a very entertaining video.
Yeah, definitely.
But when you and he barely touched on this woman. He talked about, this is what this woman did to me. But this woman did it to so many people. She did it to friends, family, employers of family members without caring about that. Her mother-in-law's job, to do something like that to your mother-in-law.
Yeah. When I came across her, when I spoke with her, she comes across very convincing. She's, she came across, like talking about her daughter and all that. And so, I could see that she claims that she's not that same person anymore, but
this just happened in June.
Yeah.
In
Right.
April. She's changed. She's not the same person as she was in April.
Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
What Kim said, so the real estate agent, by the way, and that was something I wanted to mention, is that the real estate agent was only part of this thing at the very beginning. And then Dominic decided, and the lawyer decided they didn't want to use the real estate agent anymore. And then they tried to go about it without her. And so part of it too is that this was an unusual situation. Once the property went from a buy to a lease to own option, then they didn't go through the normal procedures you have for selling property. And so that allowed enough ambiguity where things like this could happen.
And rent to own or lease to own, this is what happens, because especially when the economy's bad, you have trouble moving something. So the easiest thing to do is the lease to own. But a lot of these lease to own things turn bad.
Yeah.
You very rarely do lease to own, whether you're doing a house or any. It very rarely does it ever turn out good, James.
Yeah, and what happens is that typically on that, you've got someone that might not qualify to be able to buy because of credit, or it's in this case where they're saying, well, I'll have the money, in 60 days or whatever. And so, if someone can't qualify,
all they had to do is run her credit. I'll guarantee you, credit 300.
Yeah, and she started off. What's interesting, she just started off in the beginning as just someone to connect a buyer to a seller. That was what her role was, and she would get a finder's fee. And I think if she'd left it at that and that deal fell through, then this wouldn't have.
But
went
she was
to
never.
This extent.
She was never planning on that. She was never planning on a finder's
right.
fee.
And it might have been that she knew the lady that was.
I'll guarantee you that it's more than the finder's fee. She set it up from the beginning. She seemed the victim that she thought that she can get over on. She realized that they didn't know who she was fully.
Right.
Fabiano knew who she was. I'm surprised that Fabiano didn't go to and say, look, this guy, you got to remember this. She testified against some big, all older men of the Bonannos, high-ranking soldiers in the Bonanno family, made men.
Yeah. Well, he went to her, Dominic actually went to the husband, called up the husband of Yvonne and, mentioned the scam. And, the husband is the one saying, oh, well, I can't.
I know nothing about it. I don't notice that she has any extra money now, Dominic.
Yeah. Right.
I want to believe either one.
And Dominic thinks that the guy's not involved, but I have to look at the track record. It just he's used that line before.
I'll guarantee the guys involved. They've always been involved. And see, this is the thing. Sometimes you're surprised that street people all street people don't think alike. Let's put it that way. Well,
Dominic said that he's used to dealing with the mob, but what's interesting in the mob is that you can shake hands and that the deal will go through. But the thing is, what you have is you actually have a guarantee for that transaction. The guarantee is if you don't fulfill your part, you're going to get a bullet to the head. So you're going to do it. But in this world, outside the mob, you can't operate that way. And what he's saying, what Dominic has said is he said that he's encountered more scam artists, more of these type of people in the legitimate world than in the mob world.
But these people aren't in the legitimate world.
Right.
There's nothing legitimate. They've always been in that world.
Yeah. Well,
You
I
know,
think too, part of the problem is people, a lot of the informants, I think that once people know they're informants, I think that a lot of people are afraid to work with them. And then when they start trying to work with other informants, most of these informants, as we know, I believe Dominic has tried to change. He's changed, but most of them haven't. And you see what happens. They still are, everyone's wanting to hustle. Everyone's still looking to hustle. Everyone wants to do shortcuts and find ways to make money without, that never leaves any of these guys, in my opinion.
no, it doesn't, and that's 95% of them.
Yeah.
I would say 95% of them, because they, you know what it is, when you're used to living with a lot of money in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And you all of a sudden you don't have it. Desperate times makes you bring what do you know how to do best. It's like a drug dealer that gets out of prison and can't make no money. What's he going to do? He's going to go back to selling drugs.
Right.
But these people, they don't. You're talking big numbers. I mean, this. And this is what Yvonne's been caught with. Can you imagine the things that this woman got away with?
Right, like the thing on the pharmacist. That really hasn't been put out there too much, but. Yeah, that's definitely something. And so what do you think is, back in your day, now you're a YouTube star, but in the past.
I'm not a star. I'm on YouTube.
Okay. You were a hustler. You knew how to hustle with the best of them. And so what do you think when you see this yourself? You see something like this. I'm just curious your thought as someone in that life.
I think it's people that they all want to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And so when somebody hears they can make a quick buck, and this is why these Ponzi scams are developed by your Madoffs and everything, because and these people, and she's considered a Ponzi scammer herself.
Yeah, right.
With some of the stuff she's done in her life, people get greedy. You work on people's greed or desperation. If say you have property and you're looking to get rid of it, and you're having trouble getting rid of it, and all of a sudden you have an opportunity to get rid of it. That's going to be something. I'm very surprised. This is how you kind of know that Dominic's street radar is not what it used to be. Because, I'm sorry. If someone comes to me, the first thing I do, I'll check them. Mm-hmm. And the minute that I heard the husband had something to do with Charles Carneglia, goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye. You ratted on Charles Carneglia.
Yeah.
I'm not touching that. I'm not playing with that. This is not like some low level guy. This was like a mob legend.
Yeah, right.
People might say,
killer.
Yeah, he was a mob. He was a killer. He was a damn killer. If this guy would testify against Charles Carneglia, he would testify against anybody.
Right. Yeah.
And then the Bonanno family, they testified against them. They threatened to put him in the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
So. If they have no fear of people that will kill them, and they had no fear, they're not fearing Dominick Cicale. They're not going to fear nobody. They're going for the big score. And
that's what they're buying off of. That's what they're vying off of when these scammers they think that. And Dominic's been scammed a couple of times now, and so what they think is that he's free. He doesn't want to go back to prison. And so he's not going to go back to the old Dominic. And so that's what they're counting on.
That, and this is what they know. They know this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. They know one informant can scam another informant because they know that those informants cannot do what they used to do. They don't want to go back to prison.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when Dominic picks up the phone and calls the FBI, I'll guarantee you in the FBI, they were in a cold coffee room there laughing their asses off.
Yeah.
They might think that you have a certain relationship, but their attitude is probably, wow, these informants love to rob each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And then to let this woman in, it's the thing though. The husband's a really bad dude. He's a real creeper, and and then you got the wife. You got this heartless team that they don't care. They will rip anybody off. If you will take your child and use them to make money, you would do anything wrong, James. Right. And that's what they did. They used their child, who was in a cripple in a wheelchair, used excuses to make money, and always used that child as an excuse of why they were robbing people.
Right. Yep. No,
That's
you're
all I
right
got to
on
say
that.
with that, James. You could take it out.
I appreciate it. And anything that you want to say about, a lot of people are still asking about, it's interesting for whatever reason, people are coming to the show and didn't realize that you're no longer on the mob show. And so they're looking for you.
I'm not noticeable.
Yeah, no, but you're on the Wrestling with the Devil. How's things going over there?
Well, it's going good. I'm going to be at 10,000 subs probably within the next 30 days.
Yep.
And most of those subs were picked up in the last 6 months. So it's going good.
Yeah.
It's a lot tougher there to build your channel than the mob channel. The mob channel, I came in right away, boom. And I made a lot of mistakes here, and I still grew here. There, it's much tougher. It's much a larger community. You're up against a lot of people, and a lot of famous people.
Yes.
And it's a lot different there when you're going up against famous wrestlers. I mean, informants, they're not famous; they're infamous. So
that's a difference. I really encourage people to watch your interview with Vince Russo. That was one of the best interviews I've seen. So
it did really good.
Job on that.
And people, I like to tell you guys all something. If this woman walks up to you and says, "Listen, I can make you a bunch of money," run. Okay. And if this guy's with her, and I'm sure he looks nothing like this now because they were born like right around my time.
Yeah.
So same thing. Run. If you see them together and they come in, and if you own a restaurant and they're sitting down to eat, make sure they don't run out the door and jump in the car and take off.
Yeah.
I'm done.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. And thank you, Lee, for coming on to the show today. I really appreciate it.
It's been fun, my man. Take care. Enjoy.
Take care.